are Heather and Paul Christie.
And for over 12 years, we've worked with executives and entrepreneurs to accelerate change in every aspect of their business.
Because we are in the fastest paced business environment that anyone has ever seen before.
So join us for the Evolve to Win show.
Welcome to the Evolve to Win show. I'm Heather.
And I'm Paul.
And this show is all about our 12 years in working with executives and entrepreneurs and helping them to accelerate their growth in every aspect of business. Growing personally and professionally, you got to evolve to win.
Nice plug, Heather.
Thanks. In this episode, we're going to be talking about breakdowns and how they lead to breakthroughs. And breakdowns are actually awesome. Breakdowns are something that I believe every one of us should begin to look forward to so that you can actually work through that breakdown and get to the other side and have a breakthrough.
And this is where we totally disagree. I'm not with you on it. I think that breakdowns, although yes, they are necessary for us to be, as human beings, we have to have them, that they are painful and they're not fun to go through. So I do not look forward to going through them.
Well, I never said that they weren't painful or that they're actually fun to experience, but I said that they're awesome.
When you say that they're awesome, like how's somebody supposed to take that?
Well, they're awesome because of what is on the other side of the breakdown. But here's what most people do, like you just did, is most people go into resistance. And here's why this is so critical for you, because we are in the fastest paced business economy that anyone's ever seen before. And the only way to stay ahead of that growth is by constantly failing, constantly breaking down, because growth is filled with breakdowns and you can't break through to the other side unless you experience the breakdown.
Okay.
So they are awesome. And I'm not suggesting that they're fun to go through, but I am suggesting that we learn to embrace them, because you have to really recognize a breakdown for what it is.
Yeah. So how do you just sit there and wait around to recognize that you're going to have a breakdown? So you're just waiting around while you're losing your mind, screaming, yelling, or however other people do it. That's how I do it.
That's how he does it.
I don't stop and go, oh, you know what? I'm going through a breakdown. I can't wait to get to the breakthrough. It's just bullshit.
Okay, so it's not like all fairy dust, and I'm not sure anybody in the history of ever has said what you said, I'm looking forward to a breakdown. Well,
that's how you're making it sound.
No, I'm saying that we should stop resisting them. Okay, so let's give a real life example. Why don't we pick a recent breakdown? Pick any one of yours.
I have so many breakdowns. Just setting up this podcast 2 seconds ago, I had a breakdown. I'm having breakdowns constantly.
I so wish I could have recorded that too.
And having breakdowns, I do not sit around and go, can't wait to have the breakthrough. Although it does happen. I mean, that's for sure. I mean, I definitely have a breakthrough and it feels good to do that, but I don't look forward to it.
Look, you're recording this podcast right now, which is the other side of your breakdown. So although you didn't appreciate the breakdown, so we had some issues with our sound and our technology. And we didn't actually get the problem completely solved, but we had a time frame with which we had to record. So we had to power through. What could have happened and was suggested, by the way, was screw it, let's just not do it right now.
Right.
And we both pushed through to do it. So here's what I think happens though. I think part of the reason that we encounter the amount of stress that we encounter during a breakdown is because we as human beings, we go into resistance, right? Think about the last several breakdowns that have happened. Every single one of them has been because you were doing something that was a growth phase for you, something that was new, something that was different, something you had never done before. So that's what happens when we choose growth. We automatically choose obstacles. We choose challenges. And you cannot hold an expectation for yourself that everything is always going to be perfect, because if you do, I promise you're going to live your life in breakdown mode.
Yeah. Well,
right. So why
is that what I'm doing then?
You living your life in breakdown mode. Does it feel like it sometimes?
I feel like lately I am constantly in a breakdown mode. And I know that because I'm constantly mad. As a matter of fact, I woke up this morning and I said to myself after thinking about it last night, I couldn't sleep that well last night. And I was just, why am I mad all the time? Why is it that I'm always upset and that I'm losing my mind? And I just decided that I was going to be happy. I was going to be happy starting today. And well, let's see how long that lasts. But I certainly have had a couple breakdowns since then, and I've powered through them. There's no doubt. I don't disagree with you that a breakdown isn't a great thing. It is a great thing, and it's awesome to have it because it's fun and it's exciting and it's relieving, and you do feel like, at least I feel like, I've really grown. The challenge is that when you're going through them on a constant basis, they're not fun to go through.
Well, the reason you're going through them right now more than you typically would is because you've taken on some new things. You've taken on this new podcast as an example. And there's a lot of technology that goes on behind the scenes. Now, we've been doing a podcast for over a year already, but we've used a different technology. So anytime you put yourself on a growth path, anytime, by virtue of putting yourself on a growth path, you're going to experience new things. You're going to be doing things that you haven't done before. And well, for you personally, and I know this is true for many of the executives that we work with, you have standards for yourself that are like extremely high. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so
it's standards.
You don't want to just get it right. You want to get it perfect.
Yeah.
And so that's an additional
it's standards
stress
and
you put on yourself.
It's standards and perfection. And well, and there's one more thing I would add to it, and I think this is important. People who have high standards, people who have high expectations for themselves, but also that the high efficiency. So wanting to get things done quickly and the right way. Like, things shouldn't take that long. And I as I think about this more, a lot of it has to do with the way that our environment, society is, the way that we are in 2017 going into 2018. Everything is speed. Everything is, hey, you can do this and do it fast. And so I want things to happen quickly. And I think what's happening,
getting it right the first time too.
And I think what's happening is that I'm just butting up against this whole idea that things, 5 years ago were a lot slower paced compared to how it is now. I mean,
which is why we do what we do, right? We're in such accelerated times that you have to get things done right and get them done quickly to be able to stay ahead of the curve, right?
Yeah.
And we've gone into an area that a lot of people won't even go into because they'll try to get this set up and they'll say, forget it, it's way too much work.
This stuff is a pain in the ass, and especially if you go with technology. Mm-hmm. If you are not some, Geek Squad guy that works at Best Buy, it is a nightmare. And I mean, I feel like I'm pretty technical. I mean, I'm not great, but I feel like I'm pretty technical. I can handle most stuff, especially with YouTube, to be able to pull up anything to get some answers from. It's just fantastic how much information's there. But, just
and you
dealing
even
with
have
it.
A team who supports you and works with you. It's not like you're alone in this. And there's a lot of people who try this alone, and which I think would just be, again, unless you are a complete techie, would be really difficult. So, but I want to go back to a comparison, because it's kind of like this. You're talking about how we have this expectation now that when we take something on, we have to succeed, and we have to succeed immediately. I mean,
Quickly,
I do think that's sort of a culture that we've lived into here because of technology and how quickly things are moving. It's kind of like that. Is it HGTV? Is that where they do the fix or flip?
The fix or flip.
This show is hilarious. So and I don't watch them regularly, but I've definitely gotten caught binge watching some of these before and after shots of, they find this home that's like loaded and infested with rats, and the beams are falling down, and they go through and they quote the whole thing out. And inevitably, it's always going to cost another $10,000 or $15,000 because guess what? The floor is now missing somewhere that they didn't know about, and there's always some leak somewhere. I mean, like, if there's just like one disaster after the next, that's real life. What is not real life, it is very deceiving, is that in a half-hour show with commercial breaks, these guys are able to not only fix up this whole house on a shoestring budget, but they're able to design it and make it look perfect, and then they sell it for more than they ever thought they would.
Yeah. Well, not to mention all those contractors are on TV, so they're doing the best job that they could possibly do. Try and get a bunch of contractors all synchronized and working in tandem. Yeah, right. Like, that's actually going to happen.
We have friends who have taken on the fix it and flip it for themselves. And thank God we've never gone there, because I'm not sure
We only buy new.
we would not survive that.
And
at
that's
all.
difficult enough.
You got to know your strengths and your weaknesses, like any good leader.
Yeah.
So, but I do think that that's a little bit of why we resist the breakdown, right? So here's the power of the breakdown. On the other side of every breakdown comes the breakthrough, if and only if you break through it. So a lot of times we pull back, and that's what, this is why I think breakdowns are awesome. If you shift your relationship to a breakdown, instead of resisting it and hating it and fighting up against it, if you begin to embrace it just a little bit, I'm not even asking you to enjoy it, but just get your arms around it and make the commitment, I'm going to power through because I know something good is on the other side. There's always got to be some level of emotion to get from the breakdown to the breakthrough. So really embracing and being willing to feel that emotion, whether it's frustration and anger, or whether it's even tears, joy, happiness, sadness, there's some kind of emotion ultimately that you're going to experience.
Yes. So right? You're talking about perturbation, right?
Yeah. So the fancy grown-up word for that is perturbation. The root word, you maybe have never heard perturbation. I hadn't heard it before. But the root word is the word perturbed, right? So you've heard the word perturbed. Perturbation is that uneasy, anxious kind of feeling that we all go through anytime we're experiencing something new. Now, going back to why you've felt so frustrated lately, I think part of it too is that whatever expectations we set for ourselves, when reality does not line up with the expectation, you can almost guarantee the breakdown. Am I right about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I know for me, that's been a major, major cause of breakdowns. I expect things to be a certain way.
Unfulfilled expectations.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so I expect things to be a certain way. My real world doesn't line up. And how often does the real world actually line up with
hardly
the
ever
since when you're doing something new? But this concept,
but I think so much has to do with the expectations. I'm not going to say we all. I have high expectations for myself and for things that I can accomplish. Mm-hmm. And I really am. This is such a timely topic for me personally, because I have been going through more breakdowns probably than I ever have in my life before. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it has to do with just, between doing the show, working with technology that I've never worked with before, handling, in our business already, I'm wearing, 10 different hats, as you do, as a small business owner. And then when you're outsourcing, you have to manage the people so there's just so much to do. And there's so many expectations that I have for myself. And so there is constantly breakdowns going on. And it's nice just sometimes not to have to go through a breakdown. And that's kind of what I'm talking about with avoiding that. I don't think they're awesome. I think that they are absolutely necessary, but not necessarily the thing I want to go through. But with perturbation, it's sort of like the idea is boiling water. Mm-hmm. So if you have boiling water, so you get a pot of boiling water, right? Mm-hmm. Did we talk about this already?
No, but let's start with a pot of water that's not boiling yet.
Oh, yeah.
So you imagine that you've got a pot on a stove, and the water is starting to warm up and is getting to the point where it's starting to steam, but it's not boiled yet. So it's like between 211 and then 212. When that pot of water reaches 212 degrees, which is boiling point, there's a physical shift that happens. And we human beings are sort of the same. When we make that shift, that breakthrough, the only way we can get to that new state is by having some sort of emotion.
So with the water at 211 degrees, when it starts to pop and bubble, it turns into steam. Mm-hmm. And so it actually changes its state, right?
Yes.
That's the point, is that it actually changes state. Same thing with us.
Yes.
And we feel it, and we feel a release. So it's almost how that boiling water, it's releasing into steam.
Yeah. Have you ever had an argument? Have you ever had an argument with your spouse? That's a good one. No, let me rephrase that. Let me just take that back. Think about the last argument you had with your spouse or your significant other. And think about when you actually finally said what needed to be said, and you finally let that out, and how difficult it was, or how difficult you thought it was going to be, that when you actually really had the conversation and dealt with whatever the issue was that needed to be dealt with, there was probably some level of emotion. I don't know if it was yelling or if it was tears or what it was, But you know how good that feels when you're like, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
So it actually really feels good to get to that next level. So that's growth, right? That's relationship growth. Sometimes we have to go through those uneasy periods. We have to go through the perturbation in relationships. I mean, think about how much perturbation there is in relationships at work, and how often in those relationships we fail to say something, fail to confront an issue, tolerate. We don't push ourselves. We don't stay on the heat and push ourselves to confront what needs to be confronted. Instead, we back off the heat. Guess what? If you back off the heat, you don't change state, you don't experience the breakthrough, your relationship goes back to the way it was. There's no forward movement, there's no progress, there's no growth. So the whole point is, and let's just wrap this up, the whole point is that in order to get a breakthrough, in order to move forward and change and shift and grow, when you're taking on anything that has any level of significance, a breakthrough or several is going to be, part of the path to growth. So my point again is to embrace that breakdown. The breakdown's awesome. And I'm not saying you're going to enjoy it. And I'm not saying that in the moment you're going to think it feels good.
Well, then don't call it awesome.
It's awesome because it's the access you have to the breakthrough, which is awesome. How about that?
Okay. So we agree to disagree on it. Sort of.
Well,
but I get where you're coming from. I got it.
I don't think you disagree as much as you're disagreeing. No, I think you actually...
I'm just frustrated.
I know, you're so frustrated, which means that there's more of a breakthrough to happen. Like there's more on the other side for you. So let's cheer Paul on. Let's show him a little love.
Nobody's showing me any love.
Send him a little comment. I am.
Poor baby.
Oh, pobrecito. It was great to have you with us in this show, in this Evolve to Win show. And we will be back again next week. And in every show, we're going to be talking about growth in some way, shape, or form. So if you're experiencing right now some of that tension, that perturbation that goes along with growth, just know that you're in the right place. And if you persevere and if you persist and you keep going, you will get through to the other side, which is a much, much better place to be. If you liked this show, please do share it or like it for us. And you can always find us on heatherchristie.com. And feel free to connect with us on social media.
And we're on iTunes and many other places you can find podcasts.
Yes.
And, and Gulf Shore Business, which is part of our partnership that we have. The shout out to them. And thanks for joining us.